Riley Bzdyra.
You know, there's something epic about praise and worship. It just livens up a church. I mean, honestly, I think we should let the fathers sleep in a little bit more often if they're this excited. Praise and worship is amazing. Teen camp, I went to teen camp one time, and we have some of the best praise and worship services. It's unbelievable. Usually on the last night of teen camp, we'll have a big send-off on a praise night. And it just livens us up and brings us out with an awesome year ahead. Speaking of those teenagers, now, aside from maybe the ones in this church, what's the average perception today of teenagers around? It's probably not a good one. See a group of kids in a park of my generation, what do you usually think? Here's a couple of adjectives. Lazy, unsociable, slackers, looking for an easy way out of things is often seen. A lot like the kid in this cartoon, if I have it properly. Thank you. Can you control slides? This one isn't working. All right, so yeah, that's a pretty accurate description of teenagers nowadays, in my opinion. That's pretty much one of the things that we think about them. They're certainly not interested in helping others. Above all, they're just plain apathetic. I'd like to quote from one of my favorite books, written by the Harris brothers. They were two 17-year-olds at the time that they wrote this, and they were addressing the problem of youth apathy today. A book's called Do Hard Things, if you might have heard of it before. It's a great book, I encourage it. But here is the quote. Most people don't expect you to understand what we're going to tell you in this book. And even if you do understand, they don't expect you to care. And even if you care, they don't expect you to do anything about it. And even if you do something about it, they don't expect it to last. Well, okay then, thanks for shooting us in the foot. If we start anything, it's just the average perception, negative stereotyping. One of the biggest challenges that I faced growing up is youth itself. And apparently I'm not alone. There was a study done that the majority of youth, when naming their biggest problem when they grow up, is negative stereotyping. It's there. You've probably heard or said this before, I am way too young for that when getting involved in something, or I'll wait until I'm older and more mature. When I taught this for the first time to my peers on Block Island, we had a fantastic teen weekend. When I taught this, I wanted to show my peers that this is one of the biggest lies that we can tell ourselves, that we're too young to start this, or I'll wait till we're older and more mature. That's one of the biggest lies. It shoots us ourselves in the foot. Does this sound familiar yet? Reverend Gluckin talked last week. Lies and half-truths can sometimes have the same power that truth does if it is accepted as truth. By believing and conforming to these lies and half-truths, we're telling ourselves that we're no different than the average and apathetic teenager in that cartoon. Now, if this teaching was constructed and aimed at youth, then why am I reteaching it to a bunch of adults? I'll come back to that in a moment. I want to illustrate 3 points in getting involved. The first one is to have the right heart from the start. Excuse me, I can't even talk. My first point that I want to illustrate in getting involved, we're going to start with seeking and accept God's will for us. Second one up here on the wall is going to be the right heart from the start. Last one is to be neat and complete. Finish our work so that it's neat and complete. So if this teaching was, again, constructed and aimed at youth, then why am I reteaching it? These 3 points, I don't believe, are limited just to youth. We will be discussing strong youths from the Bible, illustrating these 3 steps. But each of these youths had one thing in common that I would really like you guys to see. They each had strong, good, spiritually mature mentors. They're not just the youths doing it, they have the ones that are teaching them, that are bringing them up. First point is to accept God's call for you. God's searching for laborers to help in his work. Wouldn't you like to be parts of something as big and as powerful as God's plan for this earth, for your life? To illustrate this, we have a young man named Jeremiah. Let's go back 3,025 years. Now that sounds like a pretty long ways. Around this time, we have a young man named David. You've probably heard of him before. He had one of the most successful reigns in all of Israel. His time of reigning was called Israel's Golden Age for this reason. He had a son. His son's name was Solomon, and he had a great job too. At this time, Israel was an incredibly blessed nation, even by the regular day-to-day standards. Forget the job that God was blessing them, because they were with them. God was with his people. And then Solomon had a son. His name was Rehoboam. And what goes up must come down. Rehoboam made a couple leadership mistakes. And it was enough to cause the entire nation to split. His story is found in 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 4, if you want to turn there with us. So before we get to verse 4, here's what's happening. Rehoboam is just made king, and he's asking himself and his older counselors and his younger counselors whether, should I follow the ways of my father? Should I go stronger on the people? Should I go weaker on the people? What shall I do? Starting in verse 4, your father made your yoke hard. Now therefore lighten the hard service of your father and his heavy yoke which he put on us, and we will serve you. Then he said to them, the people, depart for 3 days, then return to me. So the people departed. King Rehoboam consulted with the elders. These are the older, the wiser people of the previous generation who had served his father Solomon while he was still alive, saying, how do you counsel me to answer these people? When they spoke to him, these are their words of wisdom. If you will be a servant to this people today, and will serve them, and grant them their petition, and speak good words to them, then they will be your servants forever. That sounds pretty good, right? But he forsook the counsel of his elders, which they had given him, and consulted the young men who grew up with him and served him, his buddies. Here's what they say. Let's move on to verse 12. Then Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam on the 3rd day, as the king had directed. The king answered the people harshly, for he forsook the advice of his elders, which they had given him. And he spoke to them according to the advice of the young men, saying, my father made your yoke heavy, but I will add to your yoke. Okay, this sounds nice. My father disciplined you with whips, but I will discipline you with scorpion tails. Wow, really nice guy. I think I want to serve him. When all Israel saw that the king did not listen to them, the people answered the king, saying, what portion do we have in David? Yeah, get lost. We have no inheritance in the son of Jesse. To your tents, O Israel, now look after your own house, David. They're splitting the nation right here. The big point is he rejected the counsel of his elders in turn for the foolish counsel of the youthful companions. He lacked a solid and righteous example. So now we have two nations. First one is the northern kingdom is Israel. The southern kingdom is Judah. Northern nation Israel has some pretty bad kings. Eventually it gets so bad that God, being a righteous God, has nothing else to do, but he has to cause a nation to conquer them. That nation is Assyria, and they are wiped off of the map in 722 BC. The southern kingdom, Judah, also starts with some corrupt kings. However, we also see some great kings, such as Asa. You might have heard of him before. Jehoiada was not the best, but Jehoash was amazing. These kings followed in the steps of their father David. They listened to the counsel of the Lord and the prophets. And around this time, in the year 627 BC, Jeremiah is called as a prophet. He illustrates our first point, which is to seek and accept God's call for us. A little known fact about Jeremiah is how young he was, actually. Let's start in Jeremiah 1, verse 1. I'm going to be skipping around here, so just stay with me for a little bit. Jeremiah 1:1 says, the words of Jeremiah, the son of Hilkiah, of the priests who were in Anathoth in the land of Benjamin. Now, I want to bring a little bit of attention to this one guy, Hilkiah. This is Jeremiah's father. Happy Father's Day, everyone. Hilkiah was a priest, because priests run in the lines, and it says they were in the priests of Anathoth. It was a family business, if you will. So Hilkiah was a priest, his father was a priest, his brothers were probably priests, and guess what? His second cousins were probably priests. Everyone around here is a priest, so he's living amongst some of the most holy men in all of Judah. He has some of the best examples that you could have. In verse 4, now the word of the Lord came to me, Jeremiah, saying this, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you. I have appointed you a prophet to the nations. Then Jeremiah says something. Alas, Lord God, behold, I do not know how to speak because I am a what? Because I am a youth. But the Lord said to me, do not say I am a youth, because everywhere I send you, you shall go. And all that I command you, you shall speak. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you to deliver you, declares the Lord. And if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? Does this sound familiar, anyone? We talked last week about great expectations for God. Do you think Jeremiah heard the last phrase like this then? For I am with you to deliver you if you're over 30. No. Okay, so fine. I'm with you to deliver you. once you hit 20, I think you're good enough. I'll deliver you then. Or no, if you're over 20, you're okay, but 18, it's just tough to work with you, man. I gotta wait. No, he did not hear that. He had the great expectations for God. God came through for him. Behold, I am with you to deliver you, declares the Lord. Verse 9, then the Lord stretched out his hand and touched my mouth, and the Lord said to me, behold, I have put my words in your mouth. I have appointed you this day over the nations and over the kingdoms, to pluck up, to break down, to destroy, and to overthrow, to build and to plant. This is a massive undertaking for a youth. This isn't an easy job. Most certainly, it is not a popular job. I mean, he has to go to the king of Judah and say, hey, you're doing this wrong. That probably doesn't go over too well to kings. So he's a little bit nervous, as we see in verse 6, but that's okay. He says, because I am a youth, alas, Lord God, I do not know how to speak. But the Lord is able to strengthen him. The Lord is able to encourage him. Now let's assume for a second that Jeremiah did not have all those good influences from his priestly family. He could have turned into a total screw-up. I mean, honestly, he could have had all of the bad influences of, say, Rehoboam, and he wouldn't even have recognized God's call in his life. He had the solid influences in his father Hilkiah and the priests in Anathoth, and they raised him up to be a force for the Lord. And oh, that the people in this church would do the same for the youth sitting in this room, for the youth upstairs, for the youth downstairs. Raise them up to be men of God. Next stop in our journey is to work with the right heart from the start. Now, I find myself occasionally working for the wrong reasons. I contribute in the praise band with the keyboard, and I came home one time from a band practice, and I was just, you ever have one of those moods where you're just like everyone else's fault but yours? That's where I was right now. So let's see here. I tried to contribute at one point in the service to see, oh, I could play this part maybe on a strings patch. I wasn't even gratified with an answer. Oh, wait, maybe they didn't hear me. So it's the sound booth's fault. Yes, that's who did it. The sound booth killed me. So, all right, so I'm not heard. Oh, wait, now people are telling me to slow down. You know what? Lay off. I'm 14, please. I am the youngest person in this entire praise band, and you're the one telling me that I need to lay off? Yeah, everyone else is louder. I'm here getting my ears blown off by the drums. Thank you very much. And here we go, Bradley Bzdyra stalking his next object of indignation. It's the praise band. Do you think God is praised when I think like this? Probably not. Actually, there's a perfect example of someone having the right heart from the start in 2 Chronicles. That's going to be our next stop. While you're turning there, I'll give you a little bit of backstory again. Our next youth happens to be a contemporary of Jeremiah. The two knew each other quite well, and Josiah, whom I would like to discuss, would frequently seek Jeremiah's counsel. We again open our story with the divided kingdom of Israel, which is in two parts. The northern is Israel, and the southern is Judah. We're going to be working with the kingdom of Judah. That's the nation that Josiah is king over. Now, before Josiah became king, Judah had some serious leadership issues. It gets pretty ugly. I mean, it gets so bad that Josiah's father is killed by his own servants. They dislike him that much. At the age of 8, Josiah inherits the throne. No pressure, Josiah Gluckin. Only a couple years left. By age 16, however, he has the entire nation turned around. He tears down the idols that the people were worshiping and moves them back to have a heart humble towards God. At around 16, he begins what would become his life's work. This is the restoration of the temple. We are going to be in verse 9, 2 Chronicles 34, verse 9. So verse 9 says, they came to Hilkiah the high priest. Wait, who? Don't we know him from somewhere? It says in Jeremiah 1 that Jeremiah, the son of Hilkiah. Wait, this could be Jeremiah's father. That's insane. Hilkiah, a high priest, has a good, solid, godly influence over the two most powerful men in the entire kingdom, the king and the prophet, king being Josiah, the prophet being Jeremiah. This man has it. He has a good, godly influence on the most important people in the region. So they came to Hilkiah the high priest and delivered the money that was brought into the house of God, which the Levites, the doorkeepers, had collected. This is just detailing the restoration of the temple, how they go about it. I'm going to skip on to verse 14. I'm going to paraphrase this a little bit just for the sake of time. When they were bringing out the money that had brought into the house of the Lord, Hilkiah the high priest found the book of the law of the Lord given to Moses. Okay, so this hasn't been found in years. This is probably way back to, I don't know, try 5 generations that they haven't even seen what the Lord wants from them. That's how wicked they are. So Hilkiah gives this book to Shaphan the scribe and says, "You give this to Josiah, please." Now Shaphan comes into Josiah's presence and starts with, "All right, yeah, everything is going perfectly fine. All this is that you requested is being done of us. One thing though, we found a book." Okay, Josiah asks for it to be read to him, and Shaphan begins, starting in verse 19. "When the king heard the words of the law, he tore his clothes." This is a symbol of utter distress. Josiah is disconsolate because he knows the extent of his people's sin. He knows how much they have sinned against the Lord. And the epitome of the right heart from the start is found in verse 21. This is Josiah's response to Shaphan. "Go, inquire of the Lord for me, and for those who are left in Israel and in Judah concerning the words of the book which has been found. For great is the wrath of the Lord which is poured out on us, because our fathers have not observed the word of the Lord, to do according to all that is written in this book." He comes with a humble heart, beseeching them and the Lord to have mercy on the people. It's because of kings like this that Judah was able to be a kingdom glorifying God for longer than perhaps Israel was. Those who go before us influence us. Judah and Israel had corrupt influences, poor kings that were directing the nation in bad paths. It is only the work of people like Josiah, Hilkiah, Jeremiah that this nation was able to survive. Church, be those people, the Hilkiahs, the Josiahs that are influencing everyone in this room. We have, I don't know, I can guarantee it right here, that each one of you knows one or more youth. Please don't blow us off just because it's the me generation, just because we are the teenagers. You guys probably felt the same thing when you were growing up. You probably had the same people looking down on you because you didn't follow the same values as them. Negative stereotyping. Please stick up for us. Please be our influences. Be the Hilkiahs and the Jeremiahs. I can promise you that you are in contact with more than one young person, and you influence them in ways that you cannot imagine. Every single bit of your action is reflected on them. You'd be surprised. Help us shape a godly generation that has a chance just to be a force for the Lord. Lastly, I'd like to finish our work so it's neat and complete. You have that last slide? Neat and complete is going to be our last point. I would like to bring up a rather well-known figure. We have mentioned him before. His name is King David. He helped to tend the flocks in his family's areas, his family's sheep. He successfully defended them from families on multiple occasions. Later, he was anointed by the prophet Samuel to become a king. He slays a massive giant named Goliath. He's had a pretty incredible youth so far. Now, when he becomes king, he has a spectacular reign in what is known as Israel's Golden Age. As we've heard before, this is the part of Israel's history where they are the most blessed, that God is with them. So, however, David is a man. As a result, he is not perfect, and he learns a very valuable lesson about having the right, finishing our work so it's neat and complete. Try to say that 10 times fast. Neat and complete in 1 Chronicles 13. For the sake of time here, I'm going to just paraphrase this a little bit, but if you want further reading, it is fantastic record. 1 Chronicles 13, what they're trying to do here is they're trying to bring the ark back to Jerusalem. It's been away since the days of Saul, even before then. It's been in the tabernacle. And they're rebuilding a proper shelter for it in the capital city for Israel, in Jerusalem. All the assembly said they would do so, for the thing was right in the eyes of all the people. And verse 7, they carried the ark of God in a new cart from the house of Abinadab. This is pretty much detailing the preparations for it, and it seems nice. Yeah, new cart, we're having 2 very strong beasts pull it. Everything should be fine, right? 2 oxen. So when they come to the threshing floor of Chidon, Uzzah puts out his hand to hold the ark because the oxen almost upset it. And the wrath of the Lord burned against Uzzah, so he struck him down because he put out his hand to the ark, and he died there before God. So that didn't go terribly well, did it? The guy dies because, I don't know, David's not very happy here. God, why did you just kill this guy? He was trying to uphold the ark. I mean, wasn't that what he's supposed to do, not just let it fall? Then David does his research, and he finds that back in the book of Leviticus, there's actually detailed instructions about carrying this. So he approaches the problem again, having the right heart, and he goes at it so that it's to the letter of God's will. He did it his way the first time, which was nice by earthly measures, but we need to do it so it's God's way. In chapter 15, David said, "No one is to carry the ark of God but the Levites, for the Lord chose them to carry the ark of God and to minister to him forever." Whoa! Now there's some change. That is right there what the Lord asked to be done for the Ark of the Covenant, the proper respect for it. He said to the priests in chapter 13, "Because you did not carry it at first, the Lord our God made an outburst on us, for we did not seek him according to the ordinance." And the rest of the chapter details a joyous experience of bringing the ark back to Jerusalem. People are dancing in the streets. It's unbelievable. This is what can happen when you do your work right, when you do it God's way instead of man's. When you walk with God, the blessings are boundless. David has been a man called after God's own heart, as we've heard before, and one of the biggest influences on his life is Samuel. Samuel is a prophet that, again, anointed him, and he brought him up to be the man of God that led the nation of Israel through its best time. People were real. They aren't just a bunch of fairy tales or stories. These people actually lived. They faced the same problems that we did. The difference between them and us is that they had great expectations for God, as we heard about last week. You can do the same things like this. Young people, as I said at the beginning, can and should get involved in the church. We've seen examples of people stepping up and taking responsibility. But in case there's any doubt in your mind that this is the will of God, I wanted to close with one last record out of 1 Timothy. It's Chronicles. Timothy. "Let no one look down on your youthfulness, but rather in speech, conduct, love, faith, and purity. Show yourself a" what? "An example of those who believe." I told the people not to let people look down on us because of our age. However, our jobs would be so much easier if we had strong, willing Christians, spiritually more mature mentors to help us on our journey. Christian people are influencing and mentoring us, so help us. Don't dismiss us because of our age or our generation. Encourage us, please. Be the Hilkiahs, the Samuels, the Jeremiahs of our time. Not just to the church, but to the teens that you know, perhaps outside, that need your influence even more than we do. We all need to have those around us willing to step up and help us on our journey to become godly individuals. If we could have the praise band come up, we're going to sing one last song together pretty soon. Let's pray. Lord, these people were real. Help us to have the same heart, to seek and accept your will, to have the right heart, to finish our work so it's neat and complete. Help us, Lord, to influence those around us in a way that's godly and uplifting to them. Help us to lean on each other in a way that you can work with us. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.